Well, the African National Congress will today conclude its National Executive Committee meeting, where party president Cyril Ramaphosa's Phala farm theft is set to have topped the agenda. However, because the Integrity Commission could not conclude its probe into Ramaphosa, the NEC has been left without any outcomes or recommendations. Will Ramaphosa's fate be decided by the executive, even in the absence of the Integrity Commission's report? Political analyst Professor Duvenhage weighs in, and he joins us live now. Prof, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us this morning. I mean, what are your thoughts on the developments that we've seen so far coming out of the NEC's meeting this weekend? It seems that they have resolved to allow the investigations being carried out by law enforcement agencies to help them come to a more decisive sort of outcome when it comes to the president.
Yes, I think this is a very important and maybe even a critical development within the context of the ANC. I think it is high time that Mr. Ramaphosa explain himself with regard to Phala. We know that this is not only a legal matter, this is also a political matter that will have an influence on the elective process later this year, and I'm not surprised that this is high on the agenda. I think at the moment it is important for Mr. Ramaphosa to went through all of this, to clear his name in a way, and to go the way of reclaiming what we call the moral high ground. But I think it's going to be difficult. From what I am picking up, there's a lot of grouping together against him in some way, so it's not going to be easy, it's not going to be straightforward, so I think it is a difficult, decisive time for Mr. Ramaphosa.
I think, if anything else, it's also given us a window into the balance of power within that decision-making body. I mean, all of the Sunday newspapers this morning have been talking about, you know, this group that was led by Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma that, of course, used the information that the president divulged in that meeting to try and rouse up action against him, either that he steps aside or that he take on some sort of leave of absence. It was, of course, his core supporting faction that was able to tip that balance in his favor and stay any of those outcomes. What do you make of that and the sort of, you know, information that we're getting in terms of what happened in that meeting?
Well, the information we are getting is not always very consistent. There are different interpretations. I will give you my interpretation of what is going on. I think there's not a single strong candidate currently opposing the president. There are a lot of groupings in opposition to him. And I can mention a few names. It is people like Supra Mohamupelo. My understanding is that Ace Magashule is a bit marginalized. It is really Mkhize. I understand there's a campaign going on behind Lindiwe Sisulu. Then we also have the Nkosazana Dlamini factor in some ways. And then the critical one to me is Paul Mashatile. I am reading Paul Mashatile as one of the very important role players in the ANC and in the conference. And his support may be very, very decisive for President Ramaphosa and his future leadership. I think if he's going to lose Mashatile's support, then I think we can start talking about trouble for President Ramaphosa. But as long as he has the Gauteng constituency behind him, and to a certain extent the Eastern Cape, I think his position is relatively safe. But if he is losing that line of support, and Mashatile is combining with people like Lindiwe Sisulu and a few others, then we have a formation that may be really dangerous for the president. And then I'm not 100% sure if he will always achieve clear majorities within the National Executive Committee of the ANC.
I mean, before we tackle issues around the ANC's nominations for those top 6 party positions, I do want to just touch on the Integrity Commission. It was a big weekend for that commission's work. They were supposed to table their findings before the NEC. We know that that didn't exactly go according to plan because of some gag order placed on the president with regards to investigations being carried out by the Office of the Public Protector. What do you make of that? Is this another clear example of the toothless sort of criticism that the Commission often gets when it has to deal with questions around ethics and morality in terms of the leaders of this organization?
You know, when it comes to committees like the Ethics Committee, we are expecting an independent committee that is going to decide on principles, on norms, on ethical considerations, and be consistent in this regard. Now, unfortunately, I am not picking this up. I think if we look at the application of the step-aside rule, for example, you will find a lot of inconsistencies in this regard. And at this point in time, I think the Ethics Committee, in many ways, is become an element, a line, a political line to certain leaders. And you can clearly see the influences of certain groupings within the ANC on the Ethics Committee. And at the moment, like many other institutions within the ANC, it is becoming dysfunctional to the extent that it is not able to get decisions, thorough, well-founded decisions, and take it through the system. And it will be very interesting to hear what their final comments is with regard to Phala. We must always take into consideration that the Phala case is not a lightweight case. This is a heavyweight case. This is well documented. It is well formulated. If I am understanding it correctly, there are something like about 14 separate cases involved. So it's not going to be easy to just throw it off the table. And then the question will be asked, what about consistency? And that is the difficult thing for Mr. Ramaphosa. And then there are also rumors, at least in some parts of the media, that there are more things coming for Mr. Ramaphosa. It's not only Phala. I still think Mr. Ramaphosa is the favorite to get the top spot, but it's going to be really difficult. And he cannot, at this point in time, be sure that he will make it to the final position. I think there's a lot going to happen between now and the conference towards the end of December.
Indeed. I mean, we're about 4 weeks away from that elective conference, Prof. And if any of the latest developments are anything to go by, you're right in saying that it's not going to be an easy road for the president. The nominations are all finally in. We're expecting an announcement on those 80 nominations soon, at least for those individuals vying for the party's top 6 positions. You've already mentioned the fact that you believe Ramaphosa to be the favorite going into this. Who are the other contenders that you think are really going to make it a trying couple of weeks for the president, right up until that final announcement over that crucial week?
Well, the names that are going around is people like Zweli Mkhize. I still believe that Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma is there. And then I understand that there's also a campaign behind Lindiwe Sisulu. When it comes to the position of deputy, I think Paul Mashatile is in a very favorite position. The interesting one will be the Secretary General. There's a number of names mentioned in this regard, even the name of a person like David Mabuza. We know when Ramakgopa is there, Zenzo Mchunu's name is mentioned in this regard. I think we are going to see at the end of the day a combination of interest groups represented within the top 6. to go like this to say there need to be at least one woman in the top 6. I think there need to be Zulu and maybe Xhosa representatives somewhere in the bigger structures. But the names I mentioned, I think these are the top names. And then we must also take into consideration that people can be disqualified in terms of the step-aside rule. I am not sure how they are going to deal with the Zweli Mkhize case, and for that matter, with the Ramaphosa case. So things can change from a legal perspective. But I think these are the most important candidates. I think behind the scenes there are also other candidates. I think Lutuli as Secretary General from the ANC. But these are very open at the moment. The big question, however, is can the ANC keep unity in this process? Can they take decisions that will be acceptable, or are we going to see an organization in the process of disintegration? And we have just over the last week yet again see the Ipsos Marginal survey indicating that the ANC national support is on a level of, I think, 41%. So these are difficult times for the ANC. It is difficult times for its leadership. I think it is true to say that the ANC is facing its biggest challenge since at least 1994, if not since 1912-13.
Well, thank you very much, Professor, for coming on to today's program and sharing your insights with us. That's a political analyst, Professor Andre Duvenhage.